I don't hear the I don't hear the music at all.
It says 30 seconds.
Uh,
Situation and circumstance. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. Can we see each other with only a glance? Situations and circumstances. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to
I like
avoid
how
it
some
is
people
not
get
a
froze with
lonely
odd
dance.
looks, and
Can we
sometimes we
see
get
each
froze
other
with
with
nice looks.
only a
Mhm.
glance? Cake mix and race mixes, matrix, kill the witches, 3 digits, made of sixes, KKK or white privilege, old spirits, blood riches, real hatred, fake forgiveness, skinny image, fat problems. I don't really know how we solve them. Gods made us, kings gave us, two enslavers, to enslave us, castaways on railways, underground dark web pages, Marvel heroes, connect the zeros, connect the pharaohs, bone marrow, Egyptian princes, dark and ancient, preserve the patience, black and Haitian, white and Asian, British coaches, eat crustaceans, ocean roaches, Illuminati, inject the bodies, GMOs, drug hobbies, Aboriginal, Pan-African, old biblical, reincarnation, hip-hop playlists, vocal rangers, sexist wages, sex changes, the game of life, bullets fly, ruin nights, players clueless, kids' rights, humans fight, nature loses, hard of hearing, dolomite, Darwinism, carbonite, hates a virus, terabytes, hard to live with, parasites, come on! Situation and circumstance, fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. Can we see each other with only a glance? Situations and
Yes,
circumstances.
once again. Once again, welcome to Situation and Circumstance. And of course, I am Mr. Classic, aka Anthony Jackson, ACE dot. And yeah, it's a wonderful day here in the Bay. Temperatures in the 70s, but I'm not a weathercast person, so I could be inaccurate. I'm just basing it off of how I feel right now. And we got a wonderful show for you today. So many wonderful guests, and as always, our topics are situational and circumstantial. And so, yeah, I can't wait to jump right in that. And of course, with me as always, Julius. Say something to the people, man.
What up? What up? Once again.
Don't be doing me, man. Don't be doing me. You just be saying it's me, and then you don't say nothing for about 10 seconds. Then we let the pause be there so everybody can see that that's all you're gonna say, kind of in that Russell Simmons kind of way, and then we go on.
PC.
And I think there was something you were gonna mention for us. Go ahead and give the people the mention.
Yeah, every Tuesday, y'all, we sit in that sweet spot of perpetual metamorphosis layered with perspective. All over the world, there's a situation
Oh,
and a circumstance, and that is our job.
yes.
And that's what we gonna give y'all today.
That's right. That's right. And today, we have quite a number of things for you today.
Sure.
We're going to talk about how it's been. First of all, we're gonna with many of the guests we have here, we're gonna ask how it's been for them. How has it been for you in this moment of all these different things going on? It's like we're in the middle of a pandemic and a revolution all at the same time. And so we're going to talk about what it looks like to have a pastor and an ally and a facilitator and visionaries and NAACP members and all kind of wonderful people supporting us today, and try to talk about, well, how does organizing look with all of us that represent so many different people. And then we're going to talk about what else? We're going to talk about how allyship and privilege can support We're going to talk about, we might touch a little bit on Black supremacy. I've been spelling that word wrong a lot because I had never heard of Black supremacy until recently. And so we're going to talk maybe just a little bit, touch on Black supremacy and ultimately how organization or organizing can look. And in some cases, organizing can look dangerously like appropriation. And so we might be able to get into a little bit of that too. And so, yeah, so come on back with us. Once again, you're here at KCBZradio.com. This is Situation and Circumstance, and we will be right back after this.
Once again.
Once again. And so,
we are still live on video. So just for your facial expressions or anything, just let you know you're still live video wise, but in terms of on air, you guys are clear.
And I believe all of you should actually be able to see it saying clear, but again, that may have something to do with what kind of device you're using. So, excuse me, but you should see it when it says clear. For those of you who are also using Instagram or anything like that, you know, feel free to mute and talk to your people if you're doing that. If not, then that's okay too.
Let's see what we got coming in.
If you can listen to, it would be helpful, I'm sure for you as well, if you're listening to the clip. Or will they be able to hear the clip, Eric?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because for some reason I'm not hearing much, but I mean, I can hear everybody's voice clear, but I'm not hearing other stuff. Is that something I need to set up on my preferences? On my sound
hearing it better now?
Because I didn't do it. I can hear it a little more now.
Cut me open, cut you open, raise the color, every single human being bleeds. Let's come together, cock citizens and in between, and rally for the rights of everybody in humanity. Black, blue, white, green, playing for the same team. Mine, I'm okay, but boy, that doesn't mean I can't dream. Black lives matter, shouldn't anger you or make you scream. All lives matter, because we aren't treated equally. Remember when we were kids?
Yeah. And so certainly I don't mind us talking through the music or at any point in time. But just wanting to, again, the clips are sometimes, well, they are obviously related to the things that we're talking about. Is my voice okay? Am I breaking up? Because I know that most of you have been froze on my screen for a while, which is okay, because most of you have a nice froze face, if that makes sense. But is everyone hearing me pretty good?
Oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're good, man.
I can hear you.
Cool. Oh, and can you make sure that behind your name you have representation?
A lot of people.
So you'll notice that most of the names on here have something behind it.
Protesters are still out in force, but let's be honest, they're not protesters. They're crybabies with nothing better to do than meander around the streets.
I don't think I can change my name on my phone. I think that I can only do that on my computer, and I'm on my phone right now. But you know,
it's the same thing we've seen time and time again with these so-called protesters and demonstrators. It started with the Occupy Wall Street brats, moved on to the more militant and overtly aggressive Black Lives Matter more crowd, cycled through the DNC paid violence instigators, and now here we are in November of 2016 with President-elect Donald Trump and a crowd of misfit babies formed from every failed movement, all sandwiched together to become the largest group of whiners the country has ever seen.
Yeah, that.
Who's that? Who's that?
That was Tommy Lauren, and she was actually on the Daily Show, and it was a show called Giving a Voice to the Conservative, and so you can catch that on YouTube. And so, I mean, you know, obviously there was a lot said there, and she called a bunch of people whiners, and she mentioned Black Lives Matter and Occupy Wall Street and all the different things, and that actually wasn't even from this year. That was, I believe that was, and I'll have to fact check on that. Fact check, which is we try to do that here. We make mistakes, but we try to fact check, so that makes us a little different than Fox News. Was I supposed to say that? And so, yeah, she talked about a lot of things, and the reason I chose that clip, even though it was a lot older, is because some of the things that, you know, we can go back in time and see that some of the things that we're saying now are not new. They're just it's just things haven't been done either to improve the scenarios or improve the quality or to imprint some equity in some of these situations. And so you can just kind of go through the archives and find this kind of stuff. And I just wonder, when you hear somebody talking about calling people who are supporting Black Lives Matter or supporting Occupy Wall Street or any of the varying things that she mentioned, I'm wondering not only what that feels like for everyone, but also just curious, just in this moment of being inside of a pandemic and a revolution all together, I'm really wondering how that is for everyone. How is that for you? And if you want to, you can, there's a button that you can raise your hand with there, or you can go ahead and click and unmute yourself. You are in charge of your mute and unmute button. How has it been?
Yeah, it's been not much has been different. I mean, as far as staying in the house, our mental and emotional state. But as far as like the social distancing, I'm Black, man. I got locks. People been social distancing from me for all my life, man. Nobody want to sit next to me in classroom and school, and when I go to the bank, it's already 6 feet away. When I wear a mask, people already look at me like I got a mask on about 10 years ago when I was 17 years old. So as far as the perception, it hasn't been much difference, man. The biggest thing again for me is like the mental state, as far as being in the house and not being able to see fam. And my sister has a newborn, and the folks haven't really seen her. So it's an adjustment. But I'm here. I'm blessed, man. I try not to complain. Every time Ant says, "Jew, you got something to say?" He knows I say very few things because I really try not to complain, man. I'm blessed. Every day I just be like, what? I'm here? I'm still here? So I'm good, man. I'm good.
You see, it's like, is he in the right occupation if he's a man of few words and he's helping to run a talk show, right? But I get what you said. I get what you're saying.
More sometimes.
And I hear that. And when you do speak, you speak what we need. So it's helpful. What I'm going to do, because it looks like there's some, I'm a little froze here, or I'm not froze, but I can't see if someone has their hand or not. So what I'm going to do, Julius, are you able to see hands?
Yes.
Let me do this really quickly, as a matter of fact. And so let me go ahead and introduce our guests. And when I introduce you, if you want to go ahead and I'll give you an opportunity to tap in and say a little bit. After I've introduced everyone, then I'll go back to the beginning of that. And so today we have, first of all, maybe I do need you to speak, Bhishan. Am I accurate in calling you Pastor Bhishan?
You are accurate in calling me Pastor.
Okay, so Pastor Bhishan of Total Restoration Church. And then we have Jeremy Capdeville of Mosaically Speaking, Socially Creative. And then we have Kels K, right? Am I saying that right? Kels K? See there? All right, of KCBZ. Say again?
Kels Key, KCBZ.
Oh, Kels Key.
Yes.
It is spelled K-E-Y, so I should have said Key, but I think I just like saying K. But, you know, Kels Key. And her show comes on... Huh?
I said public schools has failed us.
Public schools has failed us, right? Private ones too. And so Kels Key has a show actually right before ours. I haven't had the opportunity to even listen to that show yet, but fortunately for me, I've had the opportunity to speak, or excuse me, to hear her speak. And when she speaks, It is a most wonderful thing. And so I'm really excited to hear what you're going to say. And we'll give you a chance to give some shout out to your show as well. And then we have Paul, I'm hoping I'm going to say this right, Paul Himmelstein or Himmelstein?
Himmelstein, thank you.
Okay, Paul Himmelstein, he's joining us today. Paul is no stranger to the show. He actually was on our show around this time last year, and we had a real in-depth conversation about white privilege. You can always go to our archives at kcbzradio.com and you can listen to that. And we talked a little bit about white privilege, and so it's going to be real interesting to talk about some of that today as well. And in that show, we also had Jeremy Capdevielle, which I think I mentioned earlier, from Mosaically Socially Creative. And then, of course, and he's probably wondering, like, am I going to say the name right? Freddie Davis. And I believe that you are with NAACP.
Yeah, so it's Todd. This I had to get a different laptop, but yeah, definitely within NAACP.
When I first got on, I said Todd.
Yeah,
but then I asked,
right.
I said, well, hey, change your name. So then when I said change your name, I'm like, well, maybe he changed it. We're going to get this right at some point. I'm not going to keep calling you a different name. People are going to go back through the archives and they're going to say, he calls that guy something different every time he's on the show. But we have Todd here, and he's going to give us some perspective, being a member of NAACP. And I think I have reached everybody. And then, of course, we have Eric Bryant, who may, if we're lucky, we might hear a few words from him as well. And so I want to start off, I really want to start off with you, Todd, especially since I didn't say your name right. I really want to start off with you. And I just want to know, how do you feel in this moment with all the things that are going on? Like, how has it been for you in terms of you know, how has it been for you personally? And how has it been for NAACP? If you to speak just a little bit on that in 2 minutes or less, what would you say to that?
No worries. It's been unfortunately disheartening to see this situation, personally disheartening to see this situation occur again and again. George Floyd is just another name, another African-American male caught up in a long list of people who have been caught up in a system of white supremacy that's resulted in his death. It's been, if you would, somewhat encouraging to see the response, but my concern also is that the response may not be sustained. And so part of, I know what NAACP has been trying to do, working with other organizations, is to make sure that this doesn't just stop after a protest or two, but that we can collaborate and actually push some real change, some substantive policy change, because it's just happened far too long. And you know, I think the last time I was on this show, we were talking about another situation prior to this. And so after a while, you know, the names become almost, I hate to use this term, but almost meaningless in the sense that they become a part of a continuum. And I think what happens, and I'm going to stop after this because you said 2 minutes, but what happens is people forget that these are actual people who are attached, who have families and daughters and brothers and sisters, and they simply became a name on a wall or a name in a song or a name in a protest chant. And people, I think at times, and not anyone on the show, but I don't think we realize that we're losing scientists, doctors, lawyers, and all these, some of our most valuable commodities. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's almost like how some people have a job and people just become numbers to them without the attachment of this is a living, breathing human being. Let's pitch it to. I'd be interested with you, Brother Bhishan, and I mean brother with you, in in a few different ways. But I'm curious as a pastor, and so your work is supporting others and this kind of thing. And often when we're in the helping profession, that being nurses and doctors and pastors and to some degrees counselors and different things, teachers, sometimes we are out helping others, and what about us? And so I just wonder, how has this scenario been for you? And what's been kind of trending? What are some of people's fears that you've been noticing, if any?
Yeah, so man, for me, this has been the most difficult time for me in my young career. I'm gonna call myself young, even though I got all this gray on my face. So I thought I knew what pastoring looked like until 2020 hit. I thought I knew what caring for people looked like and loving on people looked like and standing with people. I thought I knew how to do that until 2020 hit, and then the script switched on me. I think what's been difficult for me, and this has been a difficult time because people are dying. As we're grieving over the injustice in our nation, we're also seeing our loved ones pass away. Not necessarily from COVID-19, but we're seeing them pass away under COVID-19 restrictions. And so trying to minister to families when, at different times when you got to tell them that there is no viewing, there is no service, and this even happened to me with my own grandfather, whom I love. He lived to see 93 years, and we even with him, a very limited 25-person graveside service only. It's been difficult. And so I think the other thing that's been difficult for me is many people that I'm pastoring actually need, like, when I get a phone call now, they actually need mental counseling, like mental counsel. I don't profess to be any of that. I give pastoral counsel, pastoral advice, but folks are losing their mind. This is a maddening time, and I'm probably one of them. And so it's been a very difficult time, to say the least.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That felt very, well, there was a lot of feeling in that, and that took me internally into just a lot of different thoughts, just while you were, and made me have a lot of different considerations for some things that I hadn't actually, either I've thought about them, but I just didn't dwell or swim inside of those thoughts long enough to have the impact I just got from what you just said. Let's go ahead and move this to, I'd be interested, Paul Himmelstein. I said it right? I know your name. Paul is the easy part. Himmelstein. He's like, you don't even have to say my last name every time. You didn't say Bhishan Carpenter. But I'm wondering for you, Paul, how's it been for you not being an African American, and so that part of it, as well as, so kind of both things, right? The pandemic part of it, and then while also seeing this revolution part of it. How's that been for you?
So the pandemic, just because that's what happened. It's not what happened first, but pandemic happened before the murder of George Floyd, or began rather. And the pandemic really scared me. It really made me fear. I'm also Jewish, and so a lot of fear of like safety, home, martial law really came up for me. And I found myself, like, the first time I really had to think about that balance of taking care of others versus taking care of myself in a while. You see people at the lines in the grocery store stocking up on food, and at some point it's like, if you're stocking up on food, are you taking food from someone else? And I feel like that question is in the air a lot right now for me and maybe for our world. So the pandemic was really scary. It really took a lot of my focus. I anticipated the worst. And then, and then a few months later to have just the next uprising and swell of the movement for Black lives really take hold in the wake of tragedy. Oh man, what did that feel like? That felt, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure it's interesting. It's interesting being white in this moment because there's an excitement about it, and that might be because of the distance from my personal safety to it. And there's that tension in there of like allyship versus being an accomplice, right? allies stand with and accomplices have skin in the game. And so for me, like in the ally sense, it's like, oh, there's this excitement because these things that we've been training and learning about, this is like the time for, this is one of the, like the fruiting mushrooms of the time, to quote Adrienne Marie Brown. And then from an accomplice side, like showing up at the anti-police terror projects, fuck your curfew, sorry, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry, F your curfew. Protest, you know, when white people are being called to take an arrest, that was scary. And that was time when I had to like process for a day and be ready to be like, okay, this is the time when I'm like, and it turned into a dance party. It didn't turn into taking an arrest, but being prepared for that with the, you know, National Warriors Guild's letter, number written on the arm and everything. That was the first time that I had chosen to do that. And so that was scary to like take a further step into that, knowing that that's the action being called of for white people and white bodies to stand in the way between black bodies and the police. So I think my 2 minutes are up, and I hope I answered your question there.
You most certainly did, and I like particularly what you said about allyship versus accomplice. That's important to note. Let's go to Jeremy Capdevielle. I love saying that last name. It's just, it rolls off the tongue. Even if I'm saying it wrong, I might say it wrong a lot, but it's not worse than calling Todd a completely different name that's not even close. Anyway, Jeremy, one of the reasons, what I want to say before you start, Jeremy is one of my friends who not only did, so first of all, and I said this on another show, all of the friends that I happen to have who are non-African American, and particularly those who are either Caucasian or who would maybe benefit off white privilege because they look enough like Caucasian, none of them called me to say, hey, I am here at the protest. I actually found out these individuals were at the protest in a very natural way. And I respect that because it was like, it wasn't being done to get like extra brownie points, like, hey, and look what I'm doing. I'm here and I'm giving you a call to let you know that, hey, this is how I'm supporting you. I don't think that's necessary. And so with Jeremy, not only did I see him very active in these protests, but I also, here's a friend who, even through the COVID and with masks on, at a time where I was kind of losing my mind in all these things that were going on, would bring food over and different stuff like that. And that's kind of when I think of allyship versus accomplice, as an ally is somebody who genuinely cares. And so I just wonder for you, considering you do have several varieties of different ethnic background friends, so it's almost like my long version of saying something that you said would be looked at differently, right? Like, oh, I have Black friends, right? So I'm just gonna say it for you. He has Black friends. And so I just wonder how it's been for you with COVID and friendships, and how you've been feeling around the things that are going on. You there, Jeremy? Oh, okay.
Well, first off, I just gotta say that I love you, you know, and yeah, and it's been, you know, before and through this, it's been a joy to be friends. And for me, I mean, I just, you know, I grew up from the get-go, just like, I'm there for family, I'm there for my friends, and I grew up in a family where when injustice is there, when we think something's wrong, that was taught to fight, and like a more kind of physical, like fire and energy. And so, like, you know, times like this before, I feel like my work is really about using art as a way to build bridges between people, create more understanding. And so I feel like, you know, I'm thinking about injustice and learning all the time for how to be in solidarity, to help support and be and further movements of social justice. And for me, I've been angry and fucking sorry, F-bomb, but yeah, I've been feeling it all, you know. I've been feeling it all, been feeling it for my friends, and I've been feeling the I think as a business owner, really having me think as I've been growing a team during this time where I have flexibility because of certain funds available through the government, I'm able to focus on what's most important to me right now. And as a team, we're, you know, having conversations where we're like, okay, like what's our company about? And what do we really stand for, and how are we living? How are we channeling funds and leveraging corporate power for social power and for community power, and having those conversations? And to me, it's like, you know, there's been a way with protests where, similar to Paul, I haven't been to protests, and I'm like, well, do I want to go to protests? Because as a white passing person who doesn't really feel super comfortable, who doesn't feel comfortable in white spaces, I'm like, it's a bunch of white folks I'm not going to feel comfortable with. But at the same time, you know, I have this privilege where I'm like, and I need to be standing up and being a voice. And so how do I occupy multiple spaces? And there was something else. So, you know, and then as a business owner and as someone who has responsibility with the team, it's like, you know, where are the edges of the conversation that I'm afraid to have? Where are the ways I'm afraid to talk about racism, talk about white supremacy, and so really leaning into these conversations with folks and with young people that I'm working with, and it's been a time for stretching and growth for me, and to not shy away from the conversations that I'm still uncomfortable with.
I like that. It's a time for stretching and growth, and these leaning into these conversations. Certainly, I have one more person that I absolutely cannot wait to hear. Don't call her Kay, you call her Kels Key, one of our own co-hosts at KCBZ, one of our own hosts at KCBZ. Please, when you talk to us, Kels, I certainly want to ask you how it's been for you, but also how it's been for you and how that translates into your show. And please let us know, tell us a little bit about your show when that comes on, and what it's called. And of course, it's here on KCBZ Radio. Kels, talk to us, Kels Key.
Wow. You want me to do all of that in 2 minutes? That's pretty quick. All right, let's go.
Try your best.
My show is Kel's Thoughts. It's the KT show, provocative thoughts from a provoked mind. And this show has actually been quite therapeutic for me, in the sense that I am able to negotiate spaces, which is something that I was picking up on Jeremy. Negotiating spaces is what he's doing. So in my professional capacity, I'm a clinical case manager, which is just under social work. And then I also teach at a couple of community colleges and university. So having said that, let me just that the that the first thing is with respect to I guess working through COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd. So first of all, I was still mourning Kobe, you know, and dang, then that was taken away. And so we had to move quick from Kobe. But the COVID-19, it didn't really take me by surprise, I think because I pay attention to the news, and also because I was very ill, and I had all of the symptoms of COVID-19 in January. So I'm already thinking that I've already experienced it. I had everything from the black lips to the loss of taste, to the loss of smell, to the weakening in my muscles. And I've talked about that on the show. Like those are things that I experienced in January. So I don't think I was really surprised. And in my position as a pseudo social worker, I just cleared out my office. I'm the lead, the supervisor. So I just cleared out the office and got all of my colleagues out of there. Our space is too small. So that was the first thing. I've been very proactive as a result. And I think that the hardest part for me has been because I had the opportunity to work from home. But if I'm telling the truth, working from home doesn't work for me because I'm not really very disciplined. I will play, you know what I mean? So I had to go back to work because I needed to be present for my clients. And my attitude was that I've done so much work, especially with a few of the clients I can think of specifically, but so much work with getting their mental health to be stable. And to now watch this come in and to take them over, it would have been remiss of me to neglect them and neglect their mental health care. So instead, what I did was I made appointments, and I made sure that they were masked up, gloved up. I make sure that they're masked up, gloved up, and then I just address their issues. One of the things that I find comforting is that they recognize that they're comforted by my presence. So it's kind of like they feel like we're in this together. So you haven't abandoned me. So for me, my life is constantly on go in terms of making sure that they're okay. And then George Floyd hits. I lose my mind. Like a knee on a carotid artery. Come on, are you kidding me? And Derek Chauvin was modeling and posing, and whoa, wait a minute now. It's just too much. I was too busy for me. And so I did something I never do, which was I got on Facebook and just wrote these soliloquies, I guess, if you will, until somebody told me that nobody reads like 3-page entries on a Facebook.
Right.
You gotta do pictures. But because I don't do Facebook, but it was cathartic. I needed to get it out. I needed to say, dear white people, like, what is up with you? And I needed to fuss at what's his name? The president. I needed to do all of those things. And that was
what's his name?
That was how it helped me. That was how it helped me. And so now, as we are getting ready to transition into the fall, my current thoughts are, what about the babies? And I just talked about in my show, like the how COVID-19 is going to threaten to set back Black and Brown communities, especially in urban areas where there were already inadequate resources in the classroom, and how that's going to impact these kids. And so I'm on a new trajectory in terms of wanting to help, and my professional opinion is that we each one teach one. If you have a child around you, if you have somebody around you you can nurture, you can mold, you want to mold them and nurture them, because otherwise they're going to be lost to a system that doesn't care about them. And so we have to figure out, for me, that. So I guess, Mr. Host, Anthony, when you ask where my mind is at, it's running 24/7 on how we can make change, how we can do better, how we can handle the protests. And then just very quickly, and I'm getting off, is to Pastor Carpenter. So when dealing with the mental health of your church members, of your congregation, that's real, because now what they're telling you is prayer is not enough, right? And what we've learned and what we come to depend on is not enough. And so what I would recommend to you, and I guess reading through this, you're in Barstow, is that you—
Wait. I'll hold that thought, because we're going to get to a section where I do want us to not only offer the help, but what you're getting ready to lean into is going to have a lot to do with organizing and what that can look like. So I want you to hold that thought, and also thank you for that. And I think I'm seeing on our chat right here. Thank you so much for your thoroughness in that. By the way, Kels Key. I think do we still have that caller on the line before we go into a song here? Do we have a little break?
Eric B.
Hey,
Eric B.
They're coming in now.
Okay.
All right. Andrea?
Hi, Andrea. Welcome to Situation and Circumstance on KCBZ. Did you have a comment or question that you wanted to share?
Her audio is still coming on.
Yeah, it looks like her audio is still connected.
Okay. So we'll pause it there, and hopefully maybe she'll be ready when we come back. Let's go ahead, Eric, into how I feel. This is a song by Lee Lace, Steve Lund, and Chopper Milo, aka Cheering. Go ahead and let's get to that, followed by a clip from Curtis Muhammad.
I'm here today to talk about how I feel that we are treated differently than other people. I don't like how we're treated, and just because of our color doesn't mean anything to me.
This is how I feel. It's time to turn it up a notch. Running up this game, I've been going through a lot. You can see the change, different when it comes to us. This is how I feel. This is how I feel. This is how I feel. It's time to turn it up a notch. Running up this game, I've been going through a lot. You can see the change, different when it comes to us. This is how
you hear me?
Yeah, but you should update us on you as well.
Yeah, I will. So, how about when we come back, I'm still pitching it to you, and you can go ahead and bring it.
My third eye is open still. Now tell me what you gonna do. I got it.
That makes sense.
By the topics. I see us in the latest moves and all the profits.
Girls is revved up, ready to get to the answers and solutions, and I love that.